free content for the coach, by the coach, raising the bar every week. Speak for Your Mind podcast is sponsored by Powerlift Equipment. High quality equipment, unique design, and multifunctional training capabilities. Powerlift are innovators for the strength and conditioning field. Hey everybody, this is Zach Houghton with Strength Coach Select. This is episode number 15 of the Speed for Your Mind podcast. Today on the show, we have Gary Scofield. He is the head strength and conditioning coach for Greater Atlanta Christian School. Gary, how you doing, man?
Doing wonderful. You?
I'm great. I'm excited to have you on. So just so everybody that's listening can have a little bit of background on you and what you've done and where you've been and who you've worked with and what you do. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've done?
Sure. That's always a funny thing to do because it always tells them how old I am. So sounds great when I have this big, long resume. It just means I've been around a long time. But I've been blessed. I took a little different track than most people. I came out of undergraduate school at a great undergraduate school, Marietta College in Ohio, which really served to build a foundation for the way I think, not necessarily just a degree. I think sometimes we think, we go to these educational institutions for a degree, which is great and all, but it's really what they do in order to set the tone, the way you think, the way you observe, the way you evaluate. And they were found just a great foundation for me. And I got that degree in sports medicine, became a certified athletic trainer, thought it'd be a really great idea to go to Atlanta because the Olympics were coming in '96. So I'm already dating myself. So
there you go.
There.
96 Olympics. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I went to Georgia State in their master's program, and I thought it'd be great lead in towards the Olympics. So I worked the Olympics a little bit as a volunteer athletic trainer. During that time, I was able to connect with a legendary athletic trainer, Joe O'Toole, and his strength and conditioning coach, Roger Hines, with the Atlanta Hawks. Roger Hines is now the athletic trainer with the New York Knicks. And they were gracious enough to allow a young grad student to come in and work alongside them. And I saw two gentlemen at the peak of their profession. The Athletic Trainer of the Year Award in the NBA is named the Joe O'Toole Award. So I was able to work and see underneath him for a while and see the cream of the crop, the NBA athletes, and really see that top level of coaching. During that time, I also started working at a physical therapy center, so I have this sports medicine kind of framework and guideline around the way I look at things, so that may be why I have the perspectives I have. Right. That maybe it's a little bit different than maybe the exercise science or the traditional grad assistant strength coach view. And then I got my mind blown by Vern Gambetta. He came and did a talk at University of Georgia, only about 30 people in a room. And I at that time, I didn't even know strength and conditioning was a profession, to be totally honest with you. And I went up and I said, "What the heck do you do for a living?" He said, "I'm a coach." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not a sport coach. What is this?" And he kind of explained it to me, and I was just blown away, and I connected to him. And my kids laugh now because it was pre-internet. They think I was born in 1905, but pre-internet wasn't that long ago. And pre-cell phone, oh, by the way, you actually had to go visit someone if you really wanted to share. Right. And so Vern was fantastic. I can't tell you how many times and how many hours we talked, and he was really a fundamental growth person. Mike Boyle, who's also had a background in athletic training at that point, was an unbelievably fundamentally sound person for me. And remember now, there weren't all the books and right. Couldn't Google things. And I mean, it was Borders bookstore, and they were books from 1905. When people see, they ask an older coach, what's the greatest book in the world? And they'll always tell you like Mel Siff's book. And if you try to read through that, like Super Training, if you go through that book and if you try to read it, you're like, man, this is the hardest book in the world to read. But you look at older coaches in it, the pages are falling out of it. Well, it's because it was the only book we had. It wasn't necessarily.
You just kept going back to it, kept going back to it.
That's right. We didn't have anything. So, and you had to try to go and drive and connect, but it did help. That sponge period of time where you're trying to learn everything, it was great in connecting. And I think I've carried that on to understand that things like this isn't about necessarily words of wisdom, but about connections. You and I are connecting at a point right now, and I think the use of technology can still connect. It doesn't have to be a disconnect, but I think
Right.
sometimes people get disconnected. But during this process, I decided, I'm going to leave rehab because my passion was stirred and that fire was lit to be a strength and conditioning coach. And I opened up a small training facility and started dealing with a lot of high school kids, because that's what you do. I mean, really, that was started walking through my door. Obviously, I had some connections with some higher level athletes, but it was really the young kids. And then a small school down the street asked me to come in for a camp. I did a camp. They really liked it. Their strength coach was a basketball coach. He took a job as a head basketball coach in Florida. They called me and said, would you mind coming in until we hire another coach? And I said, well, why don't you hire me? And that was 21 years ago. Great Atlanta Christian hired me. And, I've had a bunch of different side jobs, from being power bombed in the middle of a WCW ring to a lot of different unique experiences. But my job has been with Great Atlanta Christian School. I wouldn't change a second of it. It's what I wake up for. It's something that I call Ikigai. Have you ever heard of that word? Ikigai is actually a great book out.
I have not.
It's a Japanese term. There's these things called blue zones around the world where people live longer than others. And they try to do a study to find out, why do these people live until they're 105? And it's not in America. And you're thinking, well, what in the world's going on? And they went to Okinawa and studied those people, wondering why. What it was it nutritional? Was it cultural? What was it? And they came away with the word Ikigai, and everyone could tell them why they get up in the morning. And it was not because they wanted to make money or pay bills or buy new things. It was to see the blossoms in the spring, to see the smile on their grandkids' face, to till the earth, to, they had these really deep meanings. And so it's really a combination, and the book is out there. It's a tremendous book. It's called Ikigai, Ikigai. Ikigai.
Okay.
Aigai, yeah, Ikigai. And in fact, I'll give you the author. I think I have it I carry it with me because I refer to it so much. It is Garcia, and Miralles. I say Morales, but it's a great book. A little picture there for you, I know.
There it is, all the viewers. Check it out.
So, a really great book, but it talks about, okay, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do? What are you good at? What can you get paid to do? And what does the world need? Those four things, when they combine, create your Ikigai. I love sports, and what do I love about sports? When I started thinking about it, from a former athlete now transitioning into a coach, the wins and the losses and the competition and the crowds and all that and the training and all that stuff is fun, but you know what? I love hanging with the guys. I love the brotherhood. I love there's something about it, even in our profession now. What I love most about the strength coaches is the brotherhood. The NHSSCA, which is the high school organization we created, we call it #family. It's that brotherhood that I love. So that's what I love. What does the world need? Well, when I look in the sports world and I look in the training world, the biggest gap are the kids that are at the high school level. Because you and I talked about this a little bit. 96% of the athletes that train at the high school level aren't blessed enough with the genetic capabilities to go on to play in the collegiate level.
Right.
They're all we got. And it's a foundational time period. And I'm thinking, and too many times physical education in this country is getting squashed, unfortunately. And part of it's our fault that we rolled out newspapers and rolled out balls on the floor and said, hey, go run around. That's what the PE coach did. And it's shameful that he did that. And so these kids are just not getting what they need to get. So I think those world needs. So that kind of starts leading me there a little bit. Sports, I could stay involved in sports, maybe at the high school level. What can you get paid for? Well, I can get paid for, I have a degree as an athletic trainer, certified strength and conditioning coach, PE teacher. So I went and got a teacher certification, and that's what I can get paid for. And then what am I good at? I think you can be good at two different things. I think there's things that you're good at that's innate, that you were born with. Like, I have no idea. I can watch people walk and I see things, and I don't know if I was ever trained to do that. I think I'm a good observer. I can watch body language. I can see the forest through the trees sometimes. You can see what's coming before it comes. And I think that's innate. But if you knew me in high school, this is the funniest thing in the world, is seeing me do one of these things, because I was the most introverted kid. I think I said 5 things in the world. I was a nerd. I was kind of a kid. I would always have my head ducked down. And I was relatively good at school, but I wasn't an extrovert at all. But I knew in order to connect to people, because that's the world that we live in, I had to work on that. I have busted my butt on trying to be a better communicator and connector. And so I think you can get good at those things. So when you get good at it, then you realize, well, maybe I could be a teacher, coach, instructor, motivator, those types of things. And then, so what gets me out of bed every morning? And it's easier to say in maybe a story form than to tell you it's high school certified strength coach. That's really not what gets me out of bed in the morning. What gets me out of bed in the morning is those faces of my students. Like, I can picture two students right now. Right in my head, bang, right off the bat. Sydney and Jordan, right off the bat. It's two girls, a cheerleader / kind of lacrosse players. They loved coming into my room every single day, and it had nothing to do, honestly, with squat, bench, and clean. It had everything to do with, for an hour, you could be in a place that would take you where you're at and try to make you the best that you were created to be. I mean, you had an hour to be focused on being the best that you created to be. And I believe everyone on this planet, you, me, everyone was born to be great, because I believe that we were built in the image of a God, and our God isn't average. He's God. So if we were built in his image, we weren't built to be mediocre. And there are too many people in this world that are satisfied with mediocre, satisfied with the mediocre job, satisfied with the mediocre life, satisfied with their mediocre play. I'm not. I want to see what your grade is. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's athletic, maybe it's academic, maybe it's social. I don't know what it is, but let's find out. Let's explore that. So when you walk into the room, we don't say, hey, I'm not strong, I'm not fast, I'm not quick, I'm not fit. We change that. We say, when we walk in the room, let's find out how strong we can be. Let's find out how fast we were born to be. Let's find out how fit we were born to be. That's that growth mindset in real practical application. And so that's what we live for. And I can't wait. Literally, I'm off tomorrow. I can't wait to get back Tuesday with him. I told him that on Friday when I met with him. We had a break for holidays and so forth. I mean, I literally can't wait to get back with him. So it's what motivates me. But that's kind of the formative phases of my creation as a coach.
Yeah, I think I actually was talking to my wife about this the other day, and she, you just have those conversations when you have your significant other, and you're always just like, well, what if you did this? If I make more money doing this, or what if you, what I mean, this, that, and the other thing, and there was a photographer put up the picture and like put up the picture online, and the media guide sent it to me, and I thought, I put it up on the Facebook and all that kind of stuff, and I brought it over to him just because you can't buy that. You can't buy, it was like this picture of, everybody on the bench going nuts because one of our guys did something awesome, and because you can't buy that when you sit behind a desk, and you can't buy that. I'm not saying that people that sit behind desks don't love their jobs. They don't love their do it, but I don't love that, and I don't think you can ever buy a moment like that. And I think that's why, they might piss you off, and they might rub you the wrong way and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, shit, you gotta deal with it to be able to help them grow, because you ain't growing if they ain't putting you through it in the first place.
Yeah,
right?
It's definitely a two-way street. I'm definitely a different coach today than I was 5 years ago, than I was 10 years ago, than I was 20 years ago. And most of that growth is because of my athletes. It's not because of who I am. I wish it was that way. But, and athletes change just like times change. So when I was in school, if a coach told you to go do something, you did it. You didn't ask why. You just did it. Yep. You did it because you were told to do it. And sometimes you were coerced to do it. Hey, if you don't do this, well, you're going to get that. Well, today, day and age, it's different. And people like to think, like old guys like to think that, it was better in the olden days. No, it's the same. It's just things have changed. Everybody's the same. Things have changed. So instead of being told what to do, they want to be told why to do it. And we can't take that as a chip on the shoulder. Just have to understand that's where they're coming from. They don't want to know the history of your program. They want to know the role they have in it. So you can tell them, Notre Dame won, blah, 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 blah. They don't care. They want to know what's their role in that program. What's their role in that new history? And so you have to adapt with the times. And I think I've done a better job of that in the last 5 years, because I've had people in my life that have helped mentor me that have said, why are you doing this? And when you start realizing, and if you're true to your word and say it's for them, then you have to meet them where they're at. And so we do that athletically, right? We wouldn't make kids squat that weren't capable of it. We wouldn't think twice about that. We would say, okay, yeah, we wouldn't do that. But yet, emotionally, spiritually, socially, we battle that. And I'm thinking, no, just meet them where they're at. Give them what they need to be the best that they were created to be. So definitely a two-way street.
No, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about the NHSSCA and how you did it. What your thought process was. I know this is going to be a really long answer, and I absolutely
Yeah,
want it to be.
anyone that knows me is probably laughing because I'm always too long-winded as it is. But
Yeah.
anything I'm passionate about, I'm gonna share with you. But yeah, the National High School Strength Coach Association. It's a Facebook page. It's a closed group, but if you're asked to join it, you're more than welcome to. It is not just for high school coaches. All the topics are for high school coaches, but it's for anyone that's interested in that genre of what we do. So all the topics are going to be dictated towards that. But if you just go onto the Facebook page alone, just the Facebook page alone, you don't have to be a member to do that. It's open to anybody. It's a closed group. You just have to ask to become it. The sharing of information on there is astounding.
A lot.
And
You guys put a lot of stuff out there.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, people are putting videos and posts. And just the other day, a good example about high school stuff, someone had posted a video of someone squatting, and it had the forward lean. They were maintaining some heels to the ground, looked like a little pronation, and he tried everything, and he couldn't get this girl to squat, and he put help. And people put all this. Mike Bewley, the head strength and conditioning coach at Clemson, did a 20-minute video answer for this guy and put it on there. It went through movement correctives, all kinds of stuff, and I'm thinking, that's a conference, a national conference level response you get for free just by asking help. And it just, you don't see that in many other places because people would be afraid to post, this is what my athlete looks like and I can't fix it. So two different things. One, social media, everyone posts all the perfect pictures. Brett Bartholomew just mentioned it the other day in a tweet and said, we always post the good stuff, but that's not what if that was the case, we wouldn't have a job, right? That doesn't happen. And two, if you can't fix it, then why do they hire you? We have this ego that we kind of got to get over. So that in our group, that doesn't exist. So what happened was, there's this large group of high school strength coaches that there are many different organizations around. They all have different subsets. Some groups have little smaller groups that have an interest in high school, but it's not really their main thrust. So there were many coaches that felt disconnected and uninvolved. And we wanted to create, we've talked about this for 15 years. This is not like a thing that created it. It was just something we talked about forever. And I thought the age of technology, the opportunity to connect, there were some significant events that occurred, but it was just the right time. And so organically, we put out a Facebook page. And I'm being dead serious. That's how it started. Like, I wonder if there's any interest. Within a day, we had over 250 people actively on that page.
Right.
And I thought, oh, wait a minute. So Fred Eves out of Tennessee, Kevin Vanderbush out of Indiana, and myself started the process. And one of the first things we did was we said, hey, we need an executive director because we want everyone in our association to have answered the bell. In other words, to have served as a high school strength coach. Because too many associations are dictated by individuals that have never served as a coach or in the profession. And that kind of blows my mind that someone that's never been in the profession is running decisions for the profession. And when that happens, then what you're going to rely on is policies and procedures instead of relying on decisions that help promote the profession and the people in it.
Yep.
And so we started looking around and said, if we're going to have an executive director, we don't want an executive director with just unbelievable business experience or just unbelievable marketing experience, because I believe that leaves out the biggest component. You have to have been a coach. And we started looking around and bang, Rich Gray. Rich Gray, most people know with Play, before that with Hammer, maybe with York Barbell. He's been in that field for so long that people forget, I haven't because I've been around a while, that he has been a head strength and conditioning coach at two high schools here in Atlanta. And he was at Westminster and he was at St. Pius. He was also a wrestling coach. So he knows the profession, but he's been incredible in business. So he came on board in October of last year, and we started the association December 5th of last year. We have grown with leaps and bounds. Our association has grown greatly. We're about ready to have a certification for high school that's going to be completely different, and that'll be a talk for another time.
Right.
But where we are is you're going to have people at the high school level that the gap between where they are and where the current other certifications are out there, the gap is too big. You'd be asking them to jump across a river. But anyhow, we're talking about the certification. So the certification, the gap between where people are now and where the current certifications that are available out there, it's too big. So you'd be like asking you to jump across the Missouri River. I can't do it, coach. So we're trying to create a 3-tiered certification that takes people through the steps that builds that. Because a lot of people say, hey, listen, we want qualified strength and conditioning coaches at the high school level, and we're all for that. But qualification is not synonymous with certification. That's only one part. Qualification is education, certification, and experience. So are you educated? Are you certified? Are you experienced? And those are the 3 components that we built our connecting points around. I'm a big advocate, and I believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, you will see, and I'm not exaggerating, 3,000 to 5,000 jobs available at the high school level. People just don't know what they don't know. And I think 2 things are going to help with that is, one, people in the profession are going to understand that the high school level is not necessarily a step down. In fact, in many instances, it's going to challenge you as a coach harder. Mike Bewley, who I use as an example, came and spent a day with me and worked his behind off, and I think the world of him. I think he's a fantastic coach. But he looked at me and said, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. This is insane. And I said, yeah, we still have 4 more classes coming in because they come every hour. And he's like, this is crazy.
Right.
Because it's nonstop, right? So.
Funny thing about Coach Bewley, he's my boss right now, Coach Gregory.
Okay.
Coach Gregory was the head basketball coach at Georgia Tech, head basketball coach at Dayton.
Yeah.
So Bewley was hit with him a long time.
Yeah. So he's one of my mentors and great friends, and I think the world of him. But so it's not it's a challenge to you as a coach. I'm telling you right now, it's a massive challenge. And then secondly, too often the high schools have just been hiring coaches and sticking them in a weight room. And 2 things are going on there. One, that's probably not the greatest liability factor in the world. You can imagine if you had a swimming pool on campus and you decided, hey, you know how to swim. You watch the swimming pool. I'm not a certified lifeguard. I don't think I'm going to do that, right? So, and bad things can happen in a weight room. You know that. Yeah. We've been there. You could be the best coach in the world. Bad things can still happen. So you want to make sure that you're doing due diligence and liability factors. But the other thing that's happening is teams that shouldn't be beating you are beating you because they have a better athletic development process. And you look at your athletes and they're not developing equal. And you look across the field and you go, why is that team, why do their freshmen look better in 3 years? Oh, they got a guy that's a strength coach. It's a qualified strength coach. Maybe we need to start doing that. I call that the Boyd Epley effect, right? Because when he started with Nebraska, the big push for strength and conditioning in our profession was because Nebraska started getting really good. Right. And people were like, hey, we need to do what they're doing. And so you're seeing that at the high school level as well. So it's really going to be a huge growth process. So we started this association. Our website is www.nhssca.us. US because it's us putting for that. It's national, so US. And it makes sense for us. We have 8 events that we host every year. We have 7 regionals and 1 national. That's on our website. Our national conference is this June in Indianapolis. Mike Boyle's keynote speaking for it. But at every one of our events, we have 5 to 6, maybe even 7 high school coaches, up to 10 hours of content specific to high school that we try to promote. And then we'll have one in every region. That way, depending upon where you're at, because we know how cash-strapped sometimes the high school coach is, he can still get to an event. And we have many other opportunities of connection on our website, education, professional development. So we're going to have webinars, and we're starting our own podcast here this year. So there'll be a really large growth. We're really tracking to grow as a connection point. But to get back to what I was telling you, you don't have to be in the high school. You just might have an interest in that high school. So we have some private facility members. We have a lot of college, and really some of the smaller colleges. They feel more connected to what we're doing than maybe what a D1 is, because they're like, we can't do that. So I have a ton of like Division III and smaller colleges that feel like, man, that sounds more like what we do. And so, we're not we're not restricted in that sense. We know what we're doing. We're focused on one tool, and that is the high school strength and conditioning component for our athletes. And so everything we do is about that, but we're not restricted in regards to who is involved as members.
Yeah, no, I follow a lot of. I mean, every single day I'll be on. Every single day I get on there and I click around and see what people have been posting and stuff like that. And it really is. So I was at the Division III level for 2.5 years, and it was exactly what you're just saying. I felt like I related a lot, especially as freshmen come in.
Yeah.
In sports outside of football, most of them, have never really done very much.
Yep.
So having a resource like you've created, and you and your colleagues have created, for other coaches, I mean, it is a you can't put a number on how valuable that is. It really is. So tell me a little bit about. You talked about your plans for that, the NHS, SCA, and what you guys plan to do in the future. Talk to me a little bit about the differences in what you've done in the past and how that's kind of created who you are as a coach. So you talked about being at the professional level, being at the collegiate level, and what the differences are between those and how you think that those have helped you, become a better coach.
Sure. Obviously, anytime you can see great athletes perform, you can kind of see what the peak is. If you've never seen and you've never been part of that process, both from the developmental side and from watching them play, you're really missing out, right? So going to games and cheering for your favorite team, that's one thing. But going and being part of that team and seeing that development, seeing what those athletes are capable of doing, lets you know maybe what that high-end level is, right? It's
Right.
easier to create a rubric when you know what 100 is. Any teacher will tell you that. It's if I don't know what 100 is, it's hard for me to create a rubric. So being able to know that allows me, and then being involved with D1 athletes and D3 athletes and seeing the difference between those and NAIA and where does that all kind of fall in? What are those athletes capable of? Gives me a great perspective. And then finally, working with my athletes, it makes it easier for me to know what maybe they need in order to participate at the level that they want to participate in. There's some things that I can't affect with my high school kids, right? I'm not God, so I'm not going to change the genetic predisposition they were given. There are some kids that are going to walk through my door that are going to be absolute freaks. And I could probably sit and stare at them for 4 years and they would be absolutely freaks. Let's be honest. And there are other kids that are going to walk through the door, and no matter what I injected into them, they wouldn't be able to play at the next level. And so the reality is, what is it that I can do to make them the best that they were possibly created to be? Now, I could make a 15-year-old kid insanely good at age 15. But if I select something that's going to make them great at 15 but damages them so that they'll never be what they could have been at 18, then I'm bad. And I think when I first started, because I saw this top end of the athlete, man, you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z, that I thought I needed to get my 15-year-old there like that.
Right.
And Fred Eves has coined a great term and calls it a slow roast. With athletes, you need to be able to give them what they need to be and give them time to get there. You can never do something that's going to damage them. So when we talk about what I do, I have 5 kind of tools or 5 kind of pillars of everything behind what I'm going to do based upon all the experience that I've had. The first one is do no harm, and a lot of people say that, but that for me means I'm going to apply everything I can for them to obviously have a decreased risk of injury in training and playing, but also not giving them what they need, to be great now, but being as great as they will potentially be. So I might have to slow play agility development. I might have to slow play strength development until they get certain movement patterns down. And you got to really slow play that. And it's hard when you're dealing with coaches and other outside influencers that say, oh, well, this guy's squatting 415 and your kid's only doing a front squat at 150. What are you thinking? And I know that the long play is a better play because I'm going to develop them without causing them pain, because that guy that's squatting 415 when he's sitting on the bench and he's injured his senior year and your son is playing or daughter's playing, that's going to be helpful. Right. So that do no harm is a major component. And then move well, because if my athletes can't move well, I know this in sport, athletes that get in and out of position as quickly and as powerfully as possible usually can make the play. Usually, no, that depends upon their skill level, but it usually can make the play. Those that are delayed in getting in and out of positions or incapable of getting in and out of positions are problematic. I can't tell you how many coaches I've seen yelling, get low, get low, get low. And I'm looking at the kid going, he's incapable of it. He's got either ankle mobility issues, or he's got hip stability issues, or he's got, have we dealt with that, or are we just trying to get bigger, faster, and stronger? Are we just trying to get better benches, squats, and cleans, or are we trying to establish movement? And as Greg Cook talks about, if we try to lump strength on top of poor movement, we're going to break rule number one, and we're going to create harm. So I'm not going to break rule number one by worrying about strength if they don't move well. So move well is very, very fundamental to what we do. So even in our speed development models, we're going to work on angles of the shins and edges of the feet to determine they can get in and out of those positions before I apply any type of load or overspeed to them or any of that kind of stuff. I'm going to make sure that they can get in and out of those positions. And so we choose very specific exercise to develop them. So when you come in and you look at some of my athletes, you're like, that's all you're doing with them today for agility? I'm like, yeah, that's all we're doing. And they got to learn how to handle that. And people kind of are like, well, I don't know. But, when you see them on the field, then you realize, oh, wait a minute, that's pretty good. That didn't necessarily help their 5-10-5. It didn't necessarily help their 40-yard dash.
Right.
But it helps them on the field of play, which to me is the only thing I care about.
It's much more important.
So, yeah. And so I'm not a combine prep guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. There isn't. Those are good jobs. But that's not what my job is. I'm also not a powerlifting, weightlifting guy. So I don't really care what they do with those numbers. What I care is that what I give them translates to the field, and I know movement is that key. Now, once they move well, and I've chosen things that do no harm, I want them to be as strong as physically possible. Now, is there such a thing as too strong? Yeah, maybe. I don't know how many 1,000-pound squatters are in the NBA, do you? Zero. That don't exist.
I also think there's like strong enough.
Yeah, exactly. Is what I'm doing making them better on the field? Now, is it a strength thing? Because we can look at it and go, yeah, they're getting pushed around in a low box. Okay, well, that's a strength thing. Now, it might not be a squat thing, but it's a strength thing. Like, we need to work on what's causing that. Is it in the hips? Is it in the core? Is it in technique? All those things matter, right? So we got to work together with coaches, but I want them to be as strong as physically possible that matters.
So is that point 3?
That's point 3, yeah.
Number 3.
Move strong. So I have do no harm, move well, move strong. And it's move strong that matters, right? Move strong that matters. And then number 4 is move fast, right? Like once you can move strong, then you can move fast. Too many speed centers around the country opening up, all this flash and pizzazz. And the kids aren't strong at all. And I'm like, man, you can have them run through ladders and put bungee cords on them all you want until they get strong and they move well. They're not going to move fast. Now, you're probably going to lie to them with the little handheld timers, but that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So you need to be able to do that in order to move fast because and I know speed kills, right? But speed kills only when you can get in and out of positions really well and you can explode with power. So point number 4 is move fast. And then the last point is the most important point is thrive. I want them to enjoy every freaking moment of every freaking day because I do. And if they don't enjoy that process, they're not going to be engaged in that process. And if they're just doing it because I'm telling them to do it, that's not good. They have to enjoy everything because they won't eat well, they won't sleep well, they won't perform well. All those things won't matter if it's not fun. And too many, especially youth athletes, when you really bow down and ask them, why do you play soccer? Because my dad wants me to. Why do you play basketball? Because I got to get a scholarship. Those aren't 2 good reasons.
Right.
It should be because I freaking love it. That's why. That's what we want. So to me, it's do no harm, it's move well, it's move strong, it's move fast, and it's thrive. If I can live on those 5 things, and I can focus on everything that I do around those 5 things, then I know I'm probably headed in the direction that I need to with that athlete.
Yeah, well, that's some great stuff, man. I'm actually, what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to type that up. I'm going to put it up on my computer. I'm going to say, hey, Zach, don't be a slapdick today. Follow these 5 rules. That's all I'm going to say.
I tell you what it does help me with, though, is when I go to all these conferences and I speak to guys like you and I hear something really great, it helps ground me. And I look at those 5 things and I go, does it fit in those 5 things?
Right.
And it may be really cool, but I go, like, for instance, velocity-based training, when it first came out, immediately you think move fast. And I'm like, okay, well, does it fit? And where does it fit? How does it fit? Triphasic, where does it fit? How does it fit? And I'm able to apply certain aspects that I think are really cool based upon those things with different individuals. Like, who should have that? Should my freshman athletes do triphasic? Some coaches say yes. I look at that and go, I don't think so. Because I think I might do harm. Because I don't think they're
13
capable.
or 14 years old, eh?
Yeah, I don't think they're capable. Now, could they do some eccentric and isometric work with chin-ups and lunges? And yes. So I am working triphasic, maybe just differently, right? So it's modified. That's how it fits for me.
Right.
That's how I can look at a topic and go, I'm not necessarily going to throw 80, 85% of a max and have them isometrically hold that on a squat because, heck, those kids may not even be squatting it. So how can I use it, though? And we could do some body weight split squat, hold those in isometrics, use some eccentrics, and all of a sudden, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. And I can program it that way a little bit differently. And is it true triphasic? Is it true velocity-based training with some of those athletes? I don't know whatever true means. It's not the way that it was promoted in papers or in books, but I think it fits within my spectrum. So I think a lot of times when you have a good system like that, you're able to apply great things in ways maybe that matter. So,
absolutely. Cool. Well, brother, I really, really appreciate your time today, man. I really do. There are some great pieces that people can pick out from what we talked about today. So I really appreciate your time, man, and hopefully you feel like it was worth it. So,
yeah, absolutely. It always is. I love talking shop and connecting. It's one more coach I connected with, so it's awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, it was great to have you on the show today.
Thank you, brother.